Hello everyone, my name is Miss Miller and I am a kindergarten teacher. I have 8 amazing students that I want to tell you about today. They are all very unique and have a variety of needs that are required to be met in order for them to meet the rigorous state standards that are held for my class. Every one of my students learn in a variety of ways. Therefore, I need to know and understand multiple theories of educational psychology in order to help my students meet those rigorous state standards. For those of you who may not know what educational psychology is, educational psychology is a type of psychology that focuses on the study of human learning. Educational psychology is important in the field of education because of situations such as mine.
The first student I'm going to talk about today is Johnny. Johnny is very outgoing. He's always sitting on the edge of his seat excited for what we're going to learn for today. But here lately, Johnny's been very distant. He's staring off into space, not participating in class, and I'm starting to get very worried. I looked into Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. In this theory, Bronfen believed that a person's development was affected by everything in their surrounding environment. He divided the person's environment into 5 different levels: the microsystem, the mesosystem, the exosystem, the macrosystem, and the chronosystem. After reviewing Bronfenbrenner's theory, I realized that something in Johnny's ecological system could be affecting him, and this got me to thinking. Maybe I should ask his mom if she's seen a recent change in his typical behavior. So I asked her, and she proceeded to tell me how her and her husband are going through a divorce and that she just told the children that they would be splitting up. And according to Bronfenbrenner's theory, this divorce is affecting Johnny's chronosystem, therefore affecting his behavior. The microsystem is the system closest to the person and the one in which they have direct contact with. This system typically includes family, peers, or caregivers. The mesosystem consists of interactions between the different parts of a person's microsystem. The mesosystem is where a person's individual microsystems do not function independently, but are interconnected and assert influence upon one another. These interactions have an indirect impact on the individual. The exosystem is the next level we will examine. The exosystem refers to a setting that does not involve the person as an active participant, but still affects them. This includes decisions that have a bearing on the person, but in which they have no participation in the decision-making process. An example would be a child being affected by a parent receiving a promotion at work or losing their job. After reviewing Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory, I realized that I cannot change Johnny's environment outside of my classroom. But what I can do is change my environment inside the classroom. I can also help him decipher and interpret other influences so Johnny can use them to his advantage. The student we will be talking about is Samantha. Samantha is a very smart girl, but for some reason, she just is not grasping the concept of how to write a book review. Opinion writing is something we have been covering the past week or so in class, and I thought that my students would enjoy writing a book review. A few teaching strategies I have used is a literature circle, group discussion, and individual working time. Samantha is a very visual learner though, so somehow I need to tie visuals to help my student understand. The theory that I think is tied to this would be James Bruner's cognitive development theory. It proposed 3 modes of representation: enactive representation, which is action-based; iconic representation, which is image-based; and symbolic representation, which is language-based. These modes of representation are the way in which information or knowledge is stored and encoded in memory. Inactive representation happens between the ages of 0 to 1. It involves encoding action-based information and storing it in our memory. For example, in the form of movement as a muscle memory, a baby might remember the action of shaking a rattle. During the ages 1 to 6 years, the iconic representation is happening. This is where information is stored visually in the form of images. For some, this is conscious. Others say they don't experience it. This may explain why, when we are learning a new subject, it is often helpful to have diagrams or illustrations to accompany verbal information. Symbolic representation happens during the ages 7 and up. This is where information is stored in the form of a code or symbol, such as language. This is the most adaptable form of representation, for actions and images have a fixed relation to what they represent. After learning more about Bruner's theory, I can help Samantha by creating anchor charts or any kind of visual that shows my students what I would like them to include in their book reviews. I believe this could really work for Samantha after reading about the iconic mode of representation. Emma is the next student we will be talking about. Emma is really interested in school and loves to learn. She is a very hands-on type of learner, but I am having a hard time getting her interested in understanding math. We are learning part-to-part whole, and I've had my students drawing pictures to represent the math problems, but I need to do something other than just having them draw. To help me in this situation, I would recall my research on John Dewey. John Dewey is probably most famous for his role in what is called progressive education. Progressive education is essentially a view of education that emphasizes the need to learn by doing. Dewey believed that human beings learn through a hands-on approach. This places Dewey in the educational philosophy of pragmatism.
Dewey
Believed that reality must be experienced. From Dewey's educational point of view, this means that students must interact with their environment in order to adapt and learn. Dewey felt that same idea was true for teachers and that teachers and students must learn together. His view of the classroom was deeply rooted in democratic ideals, which promoted equal voice among all participants in the learning experience. After reading about John Dewey's theory, I will try using base 10 blocks. By using these, it really correlates with Dewey's hands-on approach, and I think it could be really helpful for Emma. The next student I'll be telling you about today is Tyler. Tyler is constantly singing and using everything around him as a drum set. He recognizes elements in music and is always excited when it is time for music class. He has trouble understanding subjects in the classroom, though. Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory is the theory that comes to mind when thinking about this situation. Gardner stated that students possess different kinds of minds and therefore learn, remember, perform, and understand in different ways. Gardner identified 7 distinct intelligences. These intelligences include visual spatial, bodily kinesthetic, musical, interpersonal, intrapersonal, linguistic, and logical mathematical.
and sometimes nature is included.
Learners with visual spatial intelligence are very aware of their environments. They like to draw, do jigsaw puzzles, read maps, daydream. They can be taught through drawings, verbal, and physical imagery. Tools used to help teach these learners include models, graphics, charts, photographs, drawings, and 3D modeling. Learners with bodily kinesthetic intelligence use the body effectively, like a dancer or a surgeon. They have a keen sense of body awareness. They like movement, making things, touching. They communicate well through body language and can be taught through physical activity, hands-on learning, acting out, and role-playing. Tools to help teach these learners include equipment and real objects.
Musical intelligence
Show sensitivity to rhythm and sound. They love music, but they are also sensitive to sounds in their environment. They may study better with music in the background. They can be taught by turning lessons into lyrics, speaking rhythmically, and tapping out time. Tools used to help teach these learners include musical instruments, music, radio, stereo, CDs, and multimedia. Learners with interpersonal intelligence learn through interaction. They have many friends, empathy for others, and street smarts. They can be taught through group activities, seminars, and dialogues. Tools used for these learners include the telephone, auto-conferencing, time and attention from the instructor, video conferencing, writing, and computer conferencing. Learners with intrapersonal intelligence tend to shy away from others. They are in tune with their inner feelings. They have wisdom, intuition, and motivation, as well as a strong will, confidence, and opinions that can be taught through independent study and introspection. Tools used to teach them include books, creative materials, diaries, privacy, and time. They are the most independent of learners. Next, we have the learners with linguistic intelligence. Learners with linguistic intelligence have highly developed auditory skills and often think in words. They like reading, playing word games, and making up poetry or stories. They can be taught by encouraging them to say and see words and read books together. Tools include computers, games, multimedia, books, tape recorders, and lecture. Learners, though, with logical mathematic intelligence think conceptually, abstractly, and are able to see and explore patterns in relationships. They like to experiment, solve problems, and ask cosmic questions. They can be taught through logic games, investigations, and mysteries. They need to learn and form concepts before they can deal with details. After reviewing this theory. If I teach through Tyler's intelligence in music, he will be able to understand the information better because it is on the same level of intelligence that he uses. And this is also a way I could interest him in the subject. Zach is a really generous boy. He always remembers everyone's birthday and gives gifts to the other students. Since he does this, they want to play with him. Maslow stated that people are motivated to achieve certain needs. When one need is fulfilled, a person seeks to fulfill the next one, and so on. This 5-stage model can be divided into basic needs and growth needs. Once these needs have been reasonably satisfied, one may be able to reach the highest level, called self-actualization. The first stage is the physiological needs, which includes air, food, drink, shelter, warmth, and sleep. The safety needs, which includes protection from elements, security, order, law, stability, and freedom from fear. The third stage is the love and belongingness needs. These needs include friendship, affection, and love, which could come from family, friends, or even romantic relationships. The fourth stage are the esteem needs. These needs include achievement, mastery, independence, status, dominance, prestige, self-respect, and respect from others. The fifth stage is self-actualization needs, which include realizing personal potential, self-fulfillment, seeking personal growth, and peak experiences. In order to help Zach grow to reach self-actualization, I need to help him feel loved and like he belongs. In my classroom, I need to create a community, use more group activities, and ways for the other students to get to know Zach better so they can find common interests. Next, I'll be talking about Riley. Riley is so creative. Her homework always has doodles all over it that go along with each question. She is really imaginative and creates ways to help her understand the questions. When thinking about this situation, I think of Piaget. Piaget concluded that there were 4 different stages in the cognitive development of children. The first stage was the sensory motor stage, which occurs in children from birth to approximately 2 years. The pre-operational stage is next, and this occurs in children around 2 to 7 years old. Children aged around 7 to 11 or 12 go through the concrete operational stage, and adolescents go through the formal operations stage, from the age of around 11 to 16 or more. During the early stages, infants are only aware of what is immediately in front of them. They focus on what they see, what they are doing, and physical interactions with their immediate environment. Because they don't know yet how things react, they're constantly experimenting with activities such as shaking or throwing things, putting things in their mouth, and learning the world through trial and error. During this stage, toddler through 7 years old, young children are able to think about things symbolically. Their language use becomes more mature. They also develop memory and imagination, which allows them to understand the difference between past and future and engage in make-believe. The later stages include goal-oriented behavior, which brings about a desired result. Between ages 7 and 9 months, infants begin to realize that an object exists even if it can no longer be seen. This important milestone, known as object performance, is a sign that memory is developing. After infants start crawling, standing, and walking, their increased physical mobility leads to increased cognitive development. Near the end of the sensory motor stage, 18 to 24 months, infants reach another important milestone, early language development, which is a sign that they are developing some symbolic abilities. During this stage, toddler through 7 years old, young children are able to think about things symbolically. Their language use becomes more mature. They also develop memory and imagination, which allows them to understand the difference between past and future and engage in make-believe. But their thinking is based on intuition and still not completely logical. They cannot grasp more complex concepts such as cause and effect, time, and comparison. At this time, elementary age and pre-adolescent children, ages 7 to 11, demonstrate logical, concrete reasoning. Children's thinking become less egocentric and they are increasingly aware of external events. They begin to realize that one's own thoughts and feelings are unique and may not be shared by others or may not even be part of reality. During this stage, however, most children still can't think abstractly or hypothetically. Adolescents who reach this 4th stage of intellectual development, usually at age 11 or older, are able to logically use symbols related to abstract concepts, such as algebra and science. They can think about multiple variables in systematic ways, formulate hypotheses, and consider possibilities. They also can ponder abstract relationships and concepts such as justice. Although Piaget believed in lifelong intellectual development, he insisted that the formal operational stage is the final stage of cognitive development, and that continued intellectual development in adults depends on the accumulation of knowledge. Riley is in the pre-operational stage, which can help me understand why she is so comfortable in her imaginary world rather than through logic. If I teach to this stage of symbolic learning, I will be able to help her master the information easier. My next student is Olivia. Olivia is a great student. She is always engaged in every lesson, and she goes above and beyond to participate in class. When she is engaged, she gets better scores on her tests, which allow her to get a sticker on her paper. When she does something wrong, she gets really upset. When thinking of this situation, I associate it with Skinner's operant conditioning theory. It means to roughly change behavior by the use of reinforcement which is given after the desired response. Skinner said that behavior was changed through positive or negative reinforcement or positive or negative punishment. Positive reinforcement strengthens a behavior by providing a consequence an individual finds rewarding. The removal of an unpleasant reinforcer can also strengthen behavior. This is known as negative reinforcement because it is the removal of an adverse stimulus, which is rewarding to the animal or person. Negative reinforcement strengthens behavior because it stops or removes an unpleasant experience. Punishment is defined as the opposite of reinforcement since it is designed to weaken or eliminate a response rather than increase it. It is an aversive event that decreases the behavior that it follows. Like reinforcement, punishment can work either by directly applying an unpleasant stimulus, which is positive punishment, or by removing a potentially rewarding stimulus, which is negative punishment. It is really effective to use positive reinforcement with Olivia. She is already an active student because she wants that reward. It is what motivates her to do well. I just need to make sure that I know she is understanding the information rather than just temporarily learning it to receive the reward. We have Colton. Colton is the friendliest, most talkative student I have ever had. He always has a story to share with anyone who will listen. It makes him happy when he gets the reaction he hopes for after his story. Vygotsky's theory of cognitive development is centered on the ideas that social interaction and imaginative play are large contributors to the process of cognitive development in children. He believed that the social interactions that children engage in help them to both discover and create meaning from the things that they discover. Specifically, he believed that some of the most important learning a child could experience was in the social interactions they had with a skilled tutor, that is often an adult, such as a parent or a teacher. The child will observe the behaviors of the tutor as well as follow the verbal instructions the tutor provides. The child will then emulate what they observe in their tutor. The child tries to understand what they observe and the instructions they receive by copying and internalizing while learning to apply them to their own lives. Vygotsky called this collaborative or cooperative dialogue. He called the teacher or tutor in this role the more knowledgeable other. While this role typically involves adults, as pointed out above, such as teachers, parents, or coaches, it can also involve social interactions with other children. The important part of the role is that it is fulfilled by someone from which the child can learn, a more knowledgeable other. Vygotsky also proposed something called the zone of proximal development and the idea of scaffolding in a child's development. The way this works is by recognizing that there are some things a child cannot do independently, but they would be able to do with the assistance of someone else. For example, a child might be developing the ability to make different sounds, but cannot yet talk. Using Vygotsky's theory, I can use Colton's love for being social to his educational advantage. I can encourage him to use collaboration, imaginative play, and discover new skills through others. I hope you enjoyed learning about my journey with my 8 wonderful students. I learned a lot from them. They were all very unique and had a variety of needs that were required to be met in order for them to meet the rigorous state standards that were held for my class. Every one of my students learned in multiple ways. Therefore, I needed to know and understand the theories of educational psychology in order to help my students meet those rigorous state standards. Educational psychology is important in the field of education because of similar situations to the ones I talked about in this video.